In this relatively small area of the internet, once a story starts to roll and a narrative begins to be painted, you can start to see it everywhere. Over the past couple of months, you might have seen this yourself if you follow MMORPGs closely. And yes, I'm going to be talking about the Final Fantasy XIV situation, specifically the success of the game, and something that...
Spoilers? What do you mean spoilers? Like, I'm looking, it's about to be a cinematic of the Lich King. Bro, we're at the point now with this whole spoilers thing that people would tell me not to buy Endwalker because if I bought Endwalker, I would see the front cover of the box and that would be a spoiler. Like, that's where we're at.
This goes hand in hand with another MMORPG gaining popularity, the impact that this would have on World of Warcraft in particular. To many people, it might seem silly to compare and constantly discuss World of Warcraft when talking about Final Fantasy XIV, but I believe it's a really interesting angle to explore and has much deeper implications for the genre than what you might originally think. So this video is mostly going to be going through some of my thoughts on the descent of World of Warcraft and the ascent of Final Fantasy XIV. As someone whose job it is to keep my finger on the pulse of the oftentimes mistaken for dead genre of MMORPGs, I followed the social media sentiment of this particular narrative for years now, and the recent ramp up could easily be speculated as being the perfect storm.
I am just so sick of seeing that cinematic, man. Like, I wish that they could just take that one off of YouTube. I am so sick of seeing it. Like, it's such bullshit, man. Like, I'm just so tired of it. Like, I actually don't like it. I genuinely, Bolvar should have won. Bolvar should have destroyed her, man. He's the fucking Lich King. I don't care about what some fucking off-screen empowering device thinks about it. He's the fucking Lich King. And oh, that doesn't mean anything? Then how's he casting frost shit? Huh? How'd he make the hammer go red? How'd he throw the ice thing? Because he's the fucking Lich King.
I mean by this is Final Fantasy XIV is obviously on the ascension. Whether you like the game or not, it is impossible to argue with this fact. And on the flip side of this, World of Warcraft is on the descent, and due to this dynamic, they're working in tandem to change the face of the MMORPG genre that we've known for over 15 years. World of Warcraft has been the titan of the genre for that period of time. It has always been World of Warcraft at the top of the mountain, being manually fanned and fed grapes by supermodels like a Roman emperor, and the rest of the games somewhere near the bottom of the mountain throwing human shit at each other in the streets. The gap in player numbers and impact was at times to that level of disparity. World of Warcraft transcended the genre. They brought in players that had never heard of an MMORPG.
That's true.
Players that had never played one. And amazingly, even players that were never
I think you could see that even in the classic release, where you had a lot of people who were not even really MMO gamers that tried out WoW. I think a great example of this is Ninja. Like, I know Ninja played Final Fantasy, but like, other than that, like, he was not like really an MMO player. And it was so big, it brought in a bunch of people.
The game changed the face of the genre, and they brought more players into the ecosystem than anyone will ever give them credit for.
First time and the second time.
And so whenever any new MMO is released, it is always going to be judged next to this titan.
Oh yeah.
And every single time they've been found wanting. They would not trouble the balance of power in the genre.
True.
But over the years, the rot of Activision Blizzard has set in. Where exactly it is, I'm not capable of saying. Is it at the corporate level, as many assume? You know, the Activision bosses rolling shit downhill to Blizzard on a fundamental level, altering the experiences.
That's probably a lot of it. I'll say that for sure.
An incredibly loyal customer base that they'd built up to this stage. Or is it at the design level, where they seem to have lost touch so badly with their player base, they no longer know what the game needs to be, or even how to cater to the audience that paid subscriptions year-round in expansions gone by? There will be elements of this that are, of course, based on us as consumers. Maybe the game has gotten a little stale in places and we need more of a shake-up. It needs to be more different. Or maybe since World of Warcraft has changed so drastically over the years, we are somewhat incapable of accepting it's just a different game now for a totally different audience. One thing
I have trouble accepting that. I agree with him, and I think that's definitely the case. They've changed the way that they've changed the way that the game is. And I've said this before, right? I said that I used to feel like I was the target audience for WoW, and now I don't feel like I'm the target audience for WoW. I feel like the way I play the game, what I like doing in the game, etc., like I'm no longer the target audience. And I do think that it's Blizzard they're developing the game, like, they're not developing the game for the top like 1% of players, but they're developing the game around them. Like, you have, like, systems like Conduit Energy, like Azerite Respecs. Like, this kind of stuff, this is top 1% players. This is top 1% player content. Like, nobody gives a fuck about this. Nobody wants to... nobody cares. Outside of, like, that very, very specific amount of people, nobody else gives a fuck. Like, it is so fucking exhausting. Like, I don't want to have these barriers. These like, oh, well, you can't do this because of some guy that fucking did this in Mythic Plus. Like, oh, we're going to nerf the Baron Rivendare sword because we don't want people to use it in fucking Torghast. Like, why? It's nobody cares. Like, this is like something that like fucking and also I want to make this very, very clear because some 1% players do misinterpret what I'm saying. I know you guys don't want this. No one does. They're making the decisions to throttle you, but you don't want to be throttled. And we don't want everybody else to be throttled either. We just want to play the fucking game. Do you know why Legion was fun? Because you could just play the fucking game. You know why Mists of Pandaria was fun? Because you could just play the fucking game. You don't have to worry about like, oh, well, there's this rule and that rule and you can't respec and you have to change this talent. And then if you do that, there's only so many times you can do that per week. And then there's also, if you do this kind of dungeon, you have to use this kind of gear. It's like, holy fuck, man. Chill out.
It's very clear, though. While the answer to why may be something we can never nail down or quantify, World of Warcraft is in a massive decline in every single metric that matters to the public, and in the ascendancy in the single metric that matters to Activision shareholders, revenue. And even this, seeing the single...
Look at that. Imagine losing that many people in COVID. Really, like imagine losing that many people during COVID. That's incredible.
Metric that matters to Activision shareholders, revenue. And even this, I'd say, as a non-business educated individual,
whenever I get
that
to
the short-term revenue increase Blizzard reports is one that is doomed to betray them due to the nature of how they've managed to get to that figure.
That sounds fine.
They've traded short-term financial growth for long-term sustainability in their player base. The revenue numbers might go up as they introduce new ways for existing players to spend a higher sum of money per individual than they would gain from multiple subscriptions from multiple people. But the more that they squeeze that stone that is the player base while not making positive strides to address the community complaints, the more of that player base are going to quit the game. To make more money from a smaller player base, you've got two options.
Well, you just have to keep creating more monetization options. Because if you're trying to make $100 and you have 10 people, you just need to get $10 from each of them. But if you're trying to make $100 off of 5 people, you have to get $20 from each of them. And so imagine what happens whenever you're trying to make it out of 2 people. Then you have to get $50 out of each of them. And you know what happens whenever that happens? That's whenever you have the real fucking pay-to-win shit. That's whenever you have the WoW token shit, where you can literally just buy gold and buy carries in the game.
Long-term changes that bring back players or introduce more ways to milk the existing ones, causing this problem to become gradually worse. And that seems where they're at with this. And obviously the monetization would not be as big of a deal if the game was actually great and doing really well. This would not be a big deal. You've only got to look at other games that have traditionally been labeled as pay to win and absolutely gross monetization. If the game's actually good, people are going to play it and still just accept that. But with World of Warcraft, while still being more popular than people will likely give it credit for, and likely still being the number one MMO in terms of current player base, is considered by many to be in one of the worst states in the history of the game.
I do actually believe I do believe WoW probably has more players than Final Fantasy. I just think that it does, based off of what I just see in terms of like numbers and shit like that. Like but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's always gonna be like that, or it's not going in the opposite direction.
It doesn't seem to be capable right now of understanding what the issues are, let alone addressing them in any meaningful way. World of Warcraft was most popular back in Wrath of the Lich King. I think this is really the pinnacle of WoW. Personally, for me, Burning Crusade was my favorite expansion, and I would have liked to have seen some of the elements that came into Wrath not come in. But content-wise, it was great, and people agreed it was when most people were playing the game. Since Wrath, the game has become almost unrecognizable to me, and the playing numbers have reflected this. I think it's fairly easy to see where they've gone wrong. I still like World of Warcraft retail, but I return less often and for much shorter periods of time.
Yeah.
Playing Burning Crusade Classic has reminded me of what WoW used to be, and WoW retail for me is like beating a mostly soft dick. Yeah, I'm probably still going to come, but it's a pathetic experience that reminds me of much better times. This brings us to Final Fantasy XIV. This game is in the exact opposite position. They have been in a state of constant growth since the release of Heaven's Ward, their first expansion. The social media sentiment about Final Fantasy XIV is that the player base absolutely loves the game. They worship the developers. They think that they can do almost no wrong, and the developers seem to love their player base as well. And every expansion has improved upon the already winning formula of the base game's vision. An MMORPG that started as an abject, colossal failure.
It was.
Reborn as a game that they still rushed out the door, and it showed. The Realm Reborn launch patch wasn't fantastic. They've since recognized that, and they've trimmed out some of the fat. Each expansion has improved the quality of the experience for the players who liked the idea.
This is the one, right? So I have to move ahead. All right, I'm going to skip ahead.
In front of 210,000 live concurrent viewers. That first stream had almost 1 million unique viewers across the duration, and the VOD of that stream has 2.8 million views. The subsequent days of streams are in the millions, the numerous YouTube videos are in the hundreds of thousands, and this isn't even counting the plethora of other creators doing much the same, signal boosting this message to millions of other people. Contrast that to how WoW is being discussed, and you can see this is not going great for Blizzard. And if we remember back a few weeks, there was an article circulating in the Final Fantasy XIV community saying Final Fantasy XIV has finally, for the first time in history, climbed above World of Warcraft in player numbers.
This was so dumb.
This, of course, was an article based on a fictional set of data from a website that hides their formula from the public, since it's so laughably incorrect. It claims that games that don't exist anymore have thousands of players. Games that publicly show their playing numbers to have vastly different stats to the official ones. And they mostly use Reddit activity as a metric to guess how popular the games are, which is worthless. But the point is...
like, it was crazy to me, like, whenever that article came out, that there were so many people, like, they were so eager to have their frustration with WoW vindicated that they would just put everything in the garbage.
This article that was completely wrong was discussed at length, taken for face value as a fact to so many people, and it's building into the narrative that WoW bad, Final Fantasy good.
Exactly.
So you can see where I'm going with this. World of Warcraft is going downhill. People are really unhappy with the game publicly, which is going to make less people try the game. And let's be realistic, most people that would have tried WoW have already tried it, but that is not true for Final Fantasy. So there's much more new players joining Final Fantasy, and there's more players leaving World of Warcraft than ever before. Now let's talk about the obvious. Some people say to look at people like Asmongold and to talk about them in this way is to put them on a pedestal. The idea behind this being that we're thinking they have more influence than they do. The argument to that is pretty simple. I'm not putting Asmongold on a pedestal, but he does have a huge impact and influence on everything that goes on with World of Warcraft and subsequently the Final Fantasy situation. And it isn't really his fault either. You can tell he just wants to play the games and he just wants to do what he wants to do to have a good time. But
it was weird whenever I was talking about playing the game and like people turned it into this like big thing, and they made it into like this massive thing whenever I was like, bro, I just want to play the game, you know? I'm just trying to play the game.
Whatever he does, it impacts the overall situation quite heavily, especially when you combine all these things together. You see him on WoW less often, the WoW numbers tank on social media platforms and things like YouTube and Twitch, and the Final Fantasy ones go up massively. People don't listen to what he has to say when he clearly states, I love WoW and will be back to playing it. They just see...
They don't care. They're like, sure, man. No, man, that's not true. That's not. He's lying. He hates his favorite game. He hates WoW. Look, man. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I am so excited. I know you might not believe this, but I am actually so excited. I want to raid in Burning Crusade more. Like, I haven't really. I feel like I haven't had as much fun. You know, like doing that shit, man. I've been goofing around. Like, I'd really like to do that. That'd be fucking fun, man. Do some raids and then go. I want to go to retail and get some better gear on retail WoW, too. Like, that's going to be awesome.
Even Asmongold's not on WoW anymore, and Asmongold loves WoW. And if we examine how the two companies reacted to this situation, it further proves my point that this is the perfect storm. Not only do you have all-time low player sentiment for WoW in the public, not only do you have another MMORPG for the first time ever rising to the levels of popularity to maybe dethrone World of Warcraft, Not only do you have the most prominent content creators on both of the largest gaming platforms in the world move into this competitor, either in the long or the short term, but you have company representatives making things better or worse on both sides.
Yeah.
Blizzard are straight taking L's on this one, and Final Fantasy are getting those dubs, as the cool kids are probably saying nowadays. On the day Asmongold goes into...
I want to say that I do say getting the dubs. So this does mean that I am one of the cool kids. I just want to make sure that everybody picked that up, everybody knew that, because it is true.
Final Fantasy, you have a Blizzard representative calling him an asshole publicly on Twitter. You honestly can't make this stuff up. I'm a representative calling him
As I said, I have a problem with this one. I don't have a problem with this one. This individual right here made a hate thread about me 3 years ago. And whenever it got popular, they posted their PayPal underneath so people would give them money for complaining about me. They think I didn't remember their name 3 years ago, but I remember Transmogs from 15 years ago. I remember you.
Asshole publicly on Twitter.
Fucking idiot.
You honestly can't make this stuff up. I'm not sure whether Blizzard are so egotistical and ignorant to the reality of how big of a deal this is, or if they simply just don't care and that they'd rather see their company suffer
They don't care.
than to accept that Asmongold represents a fairly significant portion of their player base.
Yeah,
now
they
you
don't
can say
care.
that this person doesn't represent Blizzard's opinion as an entity, and of course you are right. Of course he doesn't. But he is comfortable saying that publicly while wearing a verified Twitter account due to being relatively high up in the company structure, and that speaks volumes to me. I don't think it's much of a leap to say this is something shared at the water cooler, and it isn't the first time we've heard or had reason to suspect that they aren't his biggest fans. And let's be honest, they don't have to be his biggest fan, they just have to not publicly trash him. And to be honest, it seems incredibly tone deaf to me at a time you know he's about to start playing the only game that are currently poised to be your direct competition. You're going to go on social media and badmouth him. I mean, the fact you would do that anyway is dumb as fuck, but to do that at this exact time is just crazy to me.
To me, that's not really a big deal. Like, I know that there have been times, like right now, I have like a decent relationship with Blizzard. It is what it is. There was a time where I did not, and I think just like over time, that's kind of just gotten better. But yeah, I have a decent relationship. It's not like weird or anything like that. It's whatever. But like at the end of the day, I do wish people would stop bringing that guy up, because as I said, I worked it out with him, and that's completely water under the bridge. And I do feel bad seeing it kind of brought up again over and over, because it's like, you know, it's like I'm okay with what happened, and so I wish other people wouldn't talk about it. But I know obviously some people don't like understand it the same way that I do, and I can see how people would feel that way.
This is important, I believe, not just because it is interesting, but because it does have actual deeper ramifications for the genre, and it's something I would like to see, honestly. If WoW does start to play second fiddle to Final Fantasy, it could finally kick them in the arse and hopefully get them to realize there needs to be a huge shake-up. You've been doing
Legion.
things wrong.
Exactly.
You need to take a look at it again and start doing things right. Competition breeds excellence. World of Warcraft hasn't
In Legion, there was more content for archaeology than there was content in all of Shadowlands professions.
competition literally ever. They originally
there's
got
not even
good
any
by having
archaeology
passion and
in
having people who had
Shadowlands
a
at
clear
all.
vision for the game. Now they don't have that. At least, hopefully, they can motivate themselves with the competition of Final Fantasy. We've got to hope it does, and let's hope they can rise to that challenge and give us back the game that we love. That being said, I could talk about this subject all day. One thing I'm going to leave you with, since this was a pretty critical piece about Blizzard, is the following reality check that I think we all need to keep in mind when discussing this whole Final Fantasy versus World of Warcraft thing. Play what you enjoy, play what you like. I'm not saying to stop playing WoW because things are looking bad for it. I know obviously some people are going to say you don't want to get into a game that is on the decline in case things go wrong.
Yeah.
But realistically, World of Warcraft's not going to, it's not going to die in the next few years. You're totally fine on that point.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do still enjoy the game, despite the fact that a lot of people don't, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Just keep enjoying the game. Play what you enjoy. And at the end of the day, World of Warcraft did transcend the genre, as we already said. Almost everyone that has touched a video game in the last 15 years knows what World of Warcraft is. It's been everywhere. It's had mainstream crossovers and it has reached heights no other game in this genre has in the Western world. All it would take for WoW to get back to being an absolute fucking behemoth is a single good expansion. The word of mouth would travel, and the same content creators we discussed in this video that are...
Yeah, they could bring out, like, the expansion after Shadowlands can be worse than BFA, and it won't matter if the one after that is better than Legion. It won't make a difference, because people... It doesn't matter. Like, here's an example. Call of Duty, between Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone, I feel like there was like no real good Call of Duty titles. Like there was like maybe like 2. But other than that, they brought out, I thought, I never liked Black Ops. Like, and this is like maybe like a personal opinion thing. So like, it's whatever. But to me, I feel like I never, I don't know. I just didn't like it. And so it didn't matter because as soon as Warzone came out, Call of Duty was what it was all about again. Everybody, it doesn't matter how long it takes them to make a good game. People will be waiting.
Part of this narrative of WoW's decline and Final Fantasy XIV's ascendancy, part of that story, would be banging the drum for the second coming of World of Warcraft, and in a very short period of time, those previously abandoned millions of accounts would be resubbed. I hope Final Fantasy XIV continues to climb to new heights, and I hope, honestly, that Blizzard rise to the challenge. I think that's the best case scenario. I want both games to do well, because if they both do well, they're going to push each other to be the best games that they can be, and as consumers, that's where we're going to win. Thanks as always for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Leave me a like and a comment to help with the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already. They're all free to do, take you 2 seconds, and it really helps out my life a ton more than you can ever know. And we are on the way to 100k subs. I would love if you help me get there, because that has been a big goal of mine since I started making these videos. So yeah, also check out the social media links in the video description: Twitch, Discord, Patreon, and Twitter. Appreciate you all. Stay safe out there. We out. Peace.
Here, you guys can give him a sub if you like his videos. That's great. Sucked Asmongold's dick off video. Repeat the same thing 50 times. Listen, I understand that there's a lot of people that what do you call it? Like that are upset about that. I think there's a lot of WoW players that feel like you know, the game is just they feel defensive about it, I guess. Wait, they're defensive at refresh? Let me see here. Damn, 90.2. Damn, all right, guys. All fucking right, guys. That's good.